I get the privilege of leading us all off this afternoon, and I'm going to just start off by being completely honest and say I suck at fundraising, at least in the stereotype of what most people think fundraising is, which is pitching, begging, pleading, manipulating, coercing, crafting the perfect actor, or creating some fancy brochure. Successful fundraising, on the other hand, is really about an invitation for donors to express their values, to demonstrate what matters most to them, and to make an impact that they want to make in the world. So I'm going to say that again, because I probably lost you, yet here I am on this webinar. But let me say it again in a different way. Donors don't necessarily give because of your mission, they give because of theirs. So you might be thinking, what? If that's true, what does that mean? Well, it means that we have to do more listening than talking as fundraisers. Exactly the opposite, I think, of what most people think fundraising is all about. And quite frankly, why poor fundraisers give the rest of us a bad rap. Good fundraising, on the other hand, is all about listening and asking powerful questions. And that's the part that I love, I absolutely love, because it's about authentic engagement, getting to the why of why somebody might want to invest in your mission or your program and your organization. Great fundraising is relational in nature, not transactional. And there's no, for as long as I've been doing this, I still haven't discovered any magic combination of ingredients or activities that suddenly produce a donation on the other end of that assembly line. It's really about an investment in relationship. And I guess you could say that a piece of good news within this current COVID climate is that we do have more time to develop those relationships while we're on hold with much of our program responsibilities. I know, trust me, I know that there's always pressure to go get new donors or to get more donors. And on one hand, it makes perfect sense because we always have to think about expanding our donor pool. But it's also true that we probably have enough donors right in front of us right now, just waiting to be asked. And you've probably heard this before, it's probably not new, but donors, people don't necessarily, or people don't give, let me put it this way, people don't give because they haven't been asked. We do everything but get the questions actually out of our mouth, and yet we still kind of think that they will or could or should somehow do something that we haven't actually asked them to do. So when you think about your own fundraising, whether it's right now or in your fundraising calendar for the year, how are you spending your time? What percentage are you actually out there organizing another event, meeting new people, versus going deeper with those that you already know? Question: how are you spending your own time? I'm going to throw some numbers out for you that I just pulled up recently. They said that 89% of Americans give. 50% of those that give drop off after their first gift. 30% drop off after their second gift. And 90% after 5 years of giving. Inconsistent? Unfaithful, fickle? Well, the average donor supports 10 plus organizations, so they say. So it's not that they've stopped giving, but they might have stopped giving to you. Often donors quit giving because of how an organization treated them or how they perceived that they were treated. Maybe they thought that the organization didn't need them, or they didn't get any information about how their gift or their money was used. There was no memory of even supporting that organization. Or, the worst possible one, they were never thanked for that donation. Somehow there was some poor communication or servicing in that communication. But the good news is you can do something about that right now. The 3 most important things to remember to get donors to give, again, regardless of the size of gift, is prompt acknowledgement, confirmation that their investment was put to work as intended, and information on the measurable results of their giving. Prompt acknowledgement, confirmation that their investment is to work as they intended, and information on the measurable results of their giving. Retention is always less expensive than acquisition and more impactful if done right. So our starting question today was how to avoid donor fatigue, right? The bottom line answer to that, I guess, would be to keep your donors informed and engaged and inspired. It's not always simple, but it's just that simple. Informed and inspired. Things may feel, at least for me at times, maybe for you as well, things may feel topsy-turvy right now as we're fundraising in this unsettling COVID environment. But even within the pandemic, generosity is timeless. So speaking of generosity, I'm going to turn it over to Linda, my colleague Linda Twitchell, to share from the depth of her experience. Linda?
Thank you, Lonnie. That was a great overview. Just like the maxim, in this world, nothing can be said to be certain except death and taxes. The truism in the nonprofit is no fundraising equals no programming. Fundraising is a basic requirement for mid-level through executive staff. And for small organizations like most of ours, it's essential that each staff member take on multiple roles, including fundraising. And this is especially true during these very lean COVID times. My first professional job was project manager for a museum association in 1973, which was funded by an NEA grant that was matching. Back in that Stone Age, only universities and hospitals employed fundraisers. And the field of development, or it's also called advancement, had not yet been well developed. Yes, there were annual conferences that offered seminars and workshops on fundraising and grantsmanship, but no specific career preparation and no academic curriculum more formal than that. So, armed with my degrees in art history, I started on an experimental fundraising path that was ancillary to the museum programs that I created and managed to produce the required matching funds. With this little bit of personal history, I want to convey to you that fundraising is unavoidable if you work in the arts. And you can do it coming from just about any background and with little prior training. So how do you find donors and start a conversation? First, I think you have to look at the organization you represent and assess its credibility. Does the mission resonate with a true need? And what is the organization's track record? Is the board and staff leadership respected? Is the organization fiscally responsible? Have past grants and donations been spent and recorded properly and in accordance with the donor's understanding and the grant agreements? Are future plans ambitious yet viable or overblown for what's achievable? If you can answer affirmatively and enthusiastically, you are ready to proceed with fundraising with honesty and sincerity, and that is essential. Even if you are not 100% confident, if you can tell donors that you and your team have collectively identified issues that you're earnestly working on to resolve, you can still earn their trust with your candor. No doubt you know that board members and staff are the advocates and the ambassadors for their organizations, but the stories you tell have to be genuine, not just diplomatic fluff. These are the characteristics and qualities that allow you to gain and retain donors. What about searching for new donors? Where do you find them? As Lonnie mentioned, many are already in your circle as past funders, board members, ticket buyers, artists, staff, interns, and family members. They need to be cultivated and brought closer to the organization so they appreciate what distinguishes you and makes you worthy of their dollars, their volunteer time, and philanthropic priorities. Here are some ways to cultivate them. Show interest and care in your prospects. Without prying into their personal lives, learn by listening. What is interesting and important to them? Find commonality through a shared love of the arts. Your children, your travels, books, gardening, sports, concerts, events, education, professions, whatever you can learn in the conversation or through your research or through friends' information to form a base for conversation. And then you invite them to participate in a sample program at no cost. Follow up with an invitation for coffee. Make connections by suggesting a book or a poem, a song, or a link to an article related to their job or something you have discussed. Cultivation of a prospect requires interaction with your organization and you in order for them to engage. Attend their talks or their shows to ensure that you're establishing your support. Review other organizations' donor lists and sponsorships to build your pool of prospects. Read broadly in publications that introduce you to new people, such as the Beaverton Valley Times, the Portland Business Journal, Oregon Live, and identify and research those people whom you may want to interest in your organization, and then send them a follow-up email. Determine whom you know who's in a position to make an introduction. Invite them to a focus group or a listening session to gather advice on your organization's plans. Give them progress reports and tell them how their opinion at that focus group might have helped you develop a new strategy or implemented a service or an event. As the relationship continues, recruit them as a volunteer and provide training, possibly as a board member or an advisory council member, perhaps staffing a table at a public event, hosting an artist talk at their home, using their network and influence on social media, or providing professional advice in areas like marketing or human resources or lobbying even. You want to build a relationship over time with respect for their time. Acknowledge their contributions one-on-one and in public settings. Ask both donors and prospects for leads to others who may be interested in your organization. And when there is a warm rapport and you feel there is sufficient interest in your organization, ask for the donation. Do this directly or with the help of a board member who is their peer. How long is the cultivation period? Sometimes it's very short, maybe on the first meeting, and other times it's a couple of years. It really depends on timing and sometimes on the amount that you're going to ask for. Thank them repeatedly, provide documentation for tax purposes, and keep them informed through regular stewardship. I think that fundraising is both an art and a science. The art is how you develop the relationship depending upon your personal style of professionalism and warmth. You have to know yourself and what makes you effective. For example, personally, I would rather cultivate a donor relationship with women. And in working with couples, I listen especially attentively to the women's voice. I find this works for me, or at least I justify it, because women especially want to support the arts, for the benefit of their children and the community. And thus our values are aligned. The science is how you manage and store the information you collect over numerous contexts and how you analyze the data. Our fundraising work requires lots of details like the proper spelling of names, the payment schedule of installment gifts, family members' names and birthdays, second homes, travel schedules, invitations to events, and whether or not they attended. I don't trust my memory for all these details, so a database with this minutia is crucial for me, and timely and disciplined input is key. In closing, I want to add, I don't think of myself as a natural born fundraiser, whatever that might be. But I learned over the years to be strategic, sensitive, empathetic, discreet, consistent, accurate with details, and eventually to build trust and rapport by keeping the prospect or the donor always at the center of the conversation, and how best to marry that person's interests with the need of my organization. I tried to learn the most I could about the organization's leadership, vision, programming, and delivery of services to authentically present the best possible story. In other words, I practiced. And I parlayed my esoteric graduate studies in early Florentine Renaissance art and fresco conservation into a career that has been stimulating and very satisfying. And I think that you can do it too. Now, I did send out an email exchange with a number of backs and forths with a donor because I wanted you to see an example of communication. What we're really talking about is communication. And I think I sent out maybe 3 emails to this person, plus I left a voicemail message. I got one back, but not in answer to my original question. So in addition to all these other qualities that I've mentioned, it's essential to be patient and to be resilient. But here are the essential characteristics that I think sum up what I've said to you. You communicate with respect and courtesy and understanding of the recipient's limited time availability. You reinforce your organizational successes and you give an update on the progress. You make a specific request. You set up a time frame for next steps. You thank the donor again from the heart, and you provide a link for more information. So before we move into questions, which we're happy to take, I just would like to turn this over to my colleague Jenna Watanabe, because one of her specialties is social media, which is a very valuable communications platform, and she's going to talk to you about how that might help you or not when it comes to prospecting for new donors. Jenna?
Great, thanks, Linda. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having us today. So it's going to be a little hard to follow all the decades of experience that these two bring to fundraising, but I'm going to do my best. And wanted to touch on just an important tool that we may not always think about when it comes to donor communications. Even though as fundraisers, we know that fundraising, it's all about building and cultivating a trustworthy relationship and really staying top of mind. We want to find ways that we can stay connected without it feeling like it's too much. And while I think, you know, an in-person visit, a phone call, and an email, those are still among the top 3 ways to connect with donors. Obviously, we're dealing with a whole new set of rules when it comes to sheltering in place. And so today I really want to talk about social media as a tool, recognizing that we're all coming at it in with different levels of how we're using social media right now. And so this could be a review for a lot of you, but it could also offer some new ideas to make things easier. So just to kind of answer how social media can be used and leveraged in donor communications, I created sort of 3 tips to think about how it relates to the way we connect to donors, both old and new. So first, you want to make sure that you're on the best platform, right? Social media is an umbrella term. It refers to a number of different platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. It's important that you choose the best one for your organization. You want to make sure that you're using ones that reach your targeted prospects or your donors, and that you're matching with the interests and the values and the demographics of your donor pool. So for example, Instagram is a great place for an art gallery because you are sharing beautiful works of art, and it attracts folks who really enjoy visually stimulating photos and art. It's also important to choose a platform that aligns with your goals. Maybe you want to build a strong following, maybe you want to promote events, or maybe you really want a way to connect with your constituents in real time. All of those will influence which platform you end up using. The second, and I think one of the most important things, is making sure that you're telling stories with quality and consistent content. So social media really is a tool for storytelling. It's a chance for you to solidify your organization's voice and your online presence, and it helps you create these touch points to help you stay in front of your prospects and your donors. It's an opportunity to build an audience that is passionate about your mission. And in order to do that, you need to share quality content, meaning make sure it's authentic, make sure it's in your brand voice, make sure it's professional. You want to make sure it's free of typos, the links are correct. That helps build trust, and it also gives your followers confidence in your work. And I say post consistently. The more frequently that you post, the more repetition you have, and that's key for staying top of mind for donors, and staying top of mind is key to cultivating that relationship. And as I'm all saying all of this, you're probably all thinking that's great, but I don't really have capacity to do this. I'm already wearing 5 hats in my organization. How am I going to find the time to post every single day? So my third tip, and this is my favorite, is to work smart, not hard, and create content from materials that you already have. So you probably already have a lot of materials that you need to work on every year that you can use and break down into smaller pieces for social media. So for example, your annual report, an e-newsletter, or maybe other dense materials that you can break down into smaller digestible bits. We know that donors like to hear about the impact that their gifts are having in measurable ways. So if you can share meaningful stories that really showcase that impact, social media is a great way to do that. For an art gallery, you know, it could be a preview to an art collection or an art show. It could be an artist bio or a really interesting story behind a specific art piece. And then finally, you could also recognize your donors through social media. It's a really great way, to Linda's point, to provide that public recognition for donors. And I would recommend, before you share any stories or bios or thank donors, to always ask for permission. Plus, when you ask a donor if you can write a thank you post about them, it's just another touch point for you. So these are just some examples of things that you can do to build a strong following. And then once you have that strong following, there's a lot of ways you can engage your followers. They can help you share your posts. They can help promote your events. They can even create their own crowdfunding pages, such as some of us may have heard of Facebook birthday fundraisers that will really help get eyes on your organization that haven't been there before. And before I close out, I thought I would just touch on some things that I think social media should never be used for when it comes to donor communications. The first is that social media is not a substitution for phone calls or emails or visits. It's not necessarily a place that you want to be making direct asks for individuals. Again, you want to think more of it as a tool for storytelling 99% of the time. And then of course there will be days like, say, Giving Tuesday, where you want to push out those asks and let people know that you have a campaign happening. But think of it primarily as communicating about what your organization is doing and what that impact is. So if you can create these quality posts from materials that you already have and post often on platforms where your donor base spends their time, social media could be a really great tool to captivate your audience, create opportunities for more donor engagement, and get new eyes on your organization in a free or a very low cost way. So that's all I have about social media, and I wanted to leave, I did that on purpose because I wanted to leave some time for any questions that you might have. I know that some of you sent some in when you registered, and we may not have received all of them yet, but we can leave a little bit of time now for any questions that folks want to be asking as well.
Can I say something?
Yeah, absolutely.
So about 2 weeks ago, I was very hesitant about using the GoFundMe for my nonprofit that's in the straddles the arts and education industry. I was very, very hesitant because I made the assumption that right now people don't have money. And I was proven wrong by that. I was able to raise $1,300 in 22 hours to be able to be one of 300 nonprofits across the country to get a matching $1,000 GoFundMe grant. And
congratulations.
So, thank
you.
Good
for you.
I made the assumptions that people were hurting, you know, with people being unemployed. And so I guess my statement to people is don't be afraid to ask right now because they may surprise you.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely right. People still want good news stories right now. And so it sounds like you were at the right place at the right time and gave a compelling story and a compelling ask, and it was successful. Congratulations.
Thank you. I also followed that up with handwritten thank you cards to
nice.
people
Perfect.
that I had addresses for.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you.
Ashley, if you'll pull from some of the questions that were submitted when people registered for the webinar, that'd be great.
Yeah, we had a number of questions come in from people who signed up. And we could start with this one, which is what kind of collaborations have you seen that look really particularly promising?
I'll take that one. I'm not sure exactly what kind of collaborations, if the person that wrote that question is on the call, I'd love to hear more about what they're thinking. If they are thinking particularly in this age of COVID collaborations, or if it's within collaborations with donors or other funders. So I'll just riff a little bit, but if there's some more detail, I'd love to hear that. I think right now, I'm seeing more collaboration on the funder side than I think I've ever seen before. Meaning there are foundations that are joining together because they feel like coming together, they can actually do more good than just staying in their silos. And they're pooling resources together. And while it may, for some of us, in the arts, it may be at some level discouraging in that many of the foundations are very COVID related in their giving right now. That's their priority, even if that had never been a priority before, or even if they were very focused on a particular area, and now they're kind of moving away from that. As I talk with foundations and other funders, what I'm hearing is that they're being responsive right now in that way, but that's not going to go on forever. They have appreciated, I mean, right now we are, as part of the Patricia Research Center for the Arts, we're still raising funds for capital on this building project. And that's not as much of a priority as it is for programming or operations and helping those organizations that need funding right this second. But they have appreciated what I've reached out just to have an honest conversation to say, you know, we'd like to apply, but we want to be respectful of where you're at. What would you advise? And so again, now more than ever is the time for conversation, which is really the base of any kind of collaboration. So I don't know if there's somebody that's on the call that wants to expand on that, but those are my initial thoughts. Maybe not. We can move on to another one.
Oh, thank you. Well, sort of to piggyback off of that, there was another question about what characteristics are companies looking for when considering partnering with an arts organization? So maybe what do collaborations with corporate partners look like?
I'll take that unless, Linda, do you on that one?
Please go ahead.
Okay. I think one of the things that Linda mentioned in her talk was about doing research. And I think when we are approaching corporations, it's important that we do our due diligence and do our homework to find out, have they given to other arts organizations, to find out if that is an interest of theirs. Just because they are a corporation and or have a their revenue looks really good doesn't necessarily mean that their interest might be in this area. So looking at history, past giving history is always important. I think, you know, there's no rules, or there's no set of, one set of corporations or companies, corporate businesses that are more inclined to give to the arts than another. One of our first corporate gifts actually with this capital campaign came from a rock company. So, you know, that's not necessarily who I would think of as being arts related, but companies are still about humans. So there may be a corporate story about their giving and about their history, but bottom line, companies and corporations are made up of humans. And so getting to know who it is that is behind those decisions, are they interested? Are they interested in the arts? Is there some touch point to be able to build a relationship? And you may recall in a piece that I said that giving is not just about, and in fact, it's very little about the donor helping you do your mission. It's really about them, us helping the donor enact their desires and their mission, their vision. And so to go back to this example of the rock company, they wanted to make sure that their employees had a place to go and experience creativity and experience the arts that was close to them. And so, you know, what is it that company that you're asking about, what are they trying to do, and how can you marry your vision and your mission and your organizational platform or programming to what they're trying to do?
So I'll jump in now and add that one of our donors is Cambia Health Solutions. Now, you would think that there was not really a strong connection between, you know, providing, you know, family care and the arts, but to the contrary, they believed that this art center is really for the community's well-being. They see it as an opportunity for the community to come together and to, you know, experience the satisfaction and inspiration of the arts collectively. And that's what they're really looking forward to. Ashley, let's move on to another question.
Yeah, there were also a number of questions sort of around like, how often do you ask for money? How often is it appropriate? And what do you do about feeling like you're begging for money and still presenting yourself as genuinely telling your story?
Well, I'll try to respond to that. I think that no is not no permanently. No means not now. So I have no qualms in going back, you know, within what I feel is a respectable pause. You know, that might be 4, 5, 6 months. And if they have given already, I'll say something like, in a few more months hence, I'll say, are you ready to talk about another gift? Because we have this program that I think would be particularly of interest to you. And may I, I emphasized courtesy, and you ask, is this a good time to have another discussion? So
I'd love to.
you're
Go
always
ahead,
there,
Lynn.
you're always there, knocking on the door, but trying to do it with as much finesse and gentleness as possible.
I'd love to jump into that too, as just especially the question about begging or pleading, which was why I started off in a little bit of a shocking way to say, I'm not good at fundraising, at least when it comes to that traditional kind of stereotypical kind of way that we tend to look at fundraising, or others might look at fundraising. I think one of the things that really shifted for me early on in my work in this role 25 years ago was just examining my own relationship with money. I think as fundraisers, whether that's our full-time job or it's a part of our full-time as an executive director or champion of an organization, we have to do some honest work to wrestle and to face our own relationship with money before we can authentically and genuinely invite others to that conversation. And by that, I mean, do we approach money with kind of a scarcity mentality, or do we approach with abundance, or what are those stories behind money? And, money is a complicated subject, can be a complicated subject, but it doesn't have to be. It can be just a conversation, as Linda has already alluded to, that you're just inviting people to have a conversation with you. But if I think what I'm probably trying to say, that if there are all these blocks internally, that's going to come across in how you approach a donor. And so I think it's worth just taking some time to examine your own view of money, not necessarily fundraising, but then how that might be getting in your way, and how that might be time to shed that and look at it in a new light.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, I'm hearing two things, and I respect all of your collective wisdom on fundraising. I've never done it. I'm with Village Gallery of Arts. We have to seriously pursue a fundraising path. Our doors are closed. We don't know when they're going to open. We've learned to do Zoom. We've been in Zoom meetings now several times a week. So I'm hearing two things. One, I'm saying, go for your donors with those you know. Go with those that you think you can cultivate. Get to know your members and get to know what they like and what they might, and members would be our artists. Then on the other hand, I've heard about the foundations, and our strategic thinking had been, although we've been advised by RAC, don't expect a white charging stallion with a knight on it to help you. So we said, right. Well, we're over that. So what is our best path here? And I'm sure you're going to tell me there's no syllabus on the list of all the foundations that might like us. Although I wish we had one of those, it would help us a lot. So that's kind of a roundabout question, but I'd appreciate any response.
I want to make sure that I hear your question. How to find out the foundations that are giving and how that might be a good fit for you?
That would be one.
Okay.
That would be one. And is that a valid path for us? We're a small organization, about 130 members. We've been around since 1963. We surely don't want to go down with the COVID. We've had canceled shows and canceled our classes and refunded all their money. And so we're like, okay, we're still riding this horse and we want to ride it successfully. So I guess the real question is, what's our next best step in terms of finding donors?
Yeah, that's a great question that really deserves a whole lot more time than we have today in the context of this particular webinar, I think, and be happy to talk with you offline with that. And you're right, there's no easy answer. There's no book that I can just point you to, but there certainly are avenues to do research on foundations that are giving to the arts, and I can give you some of those links. This is a different season right now, as we know, with the COVID environment. As I was saying before, foundations that may have been focused just on the arts are expanding that reach right now because there's so much need in relationship to COVID. So it's not an easy answer. It's not as maybe easy as it might have been before, but it really does take research. It takes time. It might be worth talking with a professional grant writer that has access to a lot of that kind of research and has been doing grant writing for the arts in particular, that they would know who those foundations are in this moment that are actually giving.
Lana, let me add that I think that at this time you really do need to look internally at the membership. With 130 members, that's a substantial number of artists whom you could tap. And let's not overlook the value of in-kind contributions. Some artists might be willing to donate their artwork for an online auction. They might have an aunt or an uncle who wants to give. I think that when you demonstrate that your membership is really 100% behind you, it can then further validate your importance when you do go to an institutional funder.
Just like with organizations, nonprofits that have a board, foundations that's their first question, is your own board giving? And with yours, Lana, to have, as Linda said, 130 members, if you had a large percentage that are giving in some way, it doesn't have to be a big gift, but that they're all in, that speaks volume to funding.
We have a solid board who gives annually. We credit them, we thank them in our newsletter. We have a very active and large board. So I think we're doing that right.
Good.
It's just our next steps. We have a survey going out to members to see if they're all still alive in this environment, touching base, getting personal with them. We're doing a call down to every one of them. Donna Zenobia Saffer is leading that. She's our president. We're doing a lot to try to make this go, and this webinar is very appreciated, which several of us are here. In fact, we've got almost the screen covered with us. But we just need to know we're taking the right steps.
Right. Well, I'd love to talk with you afterwards or sometime and try to help walk through it with you a little bit.
That would be lovely. Really, Lonnie, that would just be terrific. We've been following the Research Center development with great zest and interest. And my husband I bought a seat. I mean, we're just so into how wonderful that is. But how do I channel that interest into our little gallery and make it work? Thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for your support in buying a seat. We appreciate that.
Now we are reaching the end of our allotted time here, and I hate to interrupt this amazing discussion. If anybody has additional questions, you can send them to me at hub@tvcreates.org, and I will connect the appropriate parties. So thank you everyone for your engagement during this webinar. Just a couple of quick things on my end to close out. You can find the rest of our workshops at tvcreates.org/workshops. Our next one is on May 27th, and it's about how to interview on TV and radio to talk about your work. And there's one almost every week through June. And you can also follow us on social media with the hashtag TV Creates and at Tualatin Valley Creates on Instagram and Facebook to find out more. And we're constantly posting grant deadlines, jobs, calls to artists, and more. And you can also get those things in your email by going to tvcreates.org/subscribe. And thank you to those of you who already indicated on the sign up form that you are interested. And I'm gonna hand it back off to Raziah to finish up.
So again, I know these webinars are very short. It's a lot of information to pack into about 45 minutes. So I want to thank everybody who's in attendance. I especially want to thank our speakers from the Beaverton Arts Foundation. Be sure to check their website, follow them on social media, sign up for their e-news as well. And along with your own fundraising efforts, just know that they'll have programming open soon as those doors are all installed and the ticket booth is up front. And I'd like to just add one thing that was mentioned shortly was looking at in-kind contributions is another means to engage your donors, to bring new donors in, maybe before they write a check. So open those conversations as well. For Tualatin Valley Creates, we also have ways that we're trying to engage the community in regards to volunteerism. We're looking for volunteers to help with light administration, administrative help, obviously outreach. And then right now we're also accepting applications for board members. So if you'd like to be more involved with Tualatin Valley Creates on the backside of our programming and part of our governance members, feel free to reach out to me. My email is director@tvcreates.org, and we can work through some of those opportunities. So again, I want to thank everybody. We will have this recording on our website as soon as possible, so you can always re-listen in and make sure you can read your chicken scratch notes. And as Ashley mentioned, we have a number of other workshops that are available via web so that you're in the safety of your own home, and we look forward to seeing you then.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, good luck.
Thank
All
you.
the best.
Oh, yeah. Thanks a bunch. We appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.